Welcome, enlightened ones. Let's elevate. You know what is wild. Some people will build a whole story about you without ever building the courage to know you. They will collect fragments. They will collect moments. They will collect their own insecurities. Then they will wrap it all up and call it your character. And for a long time, maybe you thought it was your job to run behind every lie with a bucket of truth. Maybe you thought if you explained yourself the right way, people would finally see you clearly. Maybe you thought if you stayed soft enough, patient enough, good enough, transparent enough, the gossip would die. But some of you are learning something now that changes everything. Not every rumor deserves a response. Not every accusation deserves your energy. Not every mouth deserves access to your peace. And the real power begins the moment you stop trying to clean your name in rooms that enjoy dragging it. Let them hear it again. Let them replay it. Let them repeat it with extra seasoning. Let them pass it around like it is breaking news. Because people who are committed to misunderstanding, you will never be satisfied with your explanation. They do not want clarity. They want control. They want a version of you that stays nervous. They want a version of you that comes running. They want a version of you that pleads for approval. They want to feel important enough to shake your spirit. And when you stop giving them that reaction, something shifts. The rumor loses one of its main ingredients, your participation. A lot of people feed off your need to be seen correctly. They know if they twist the story, you will come out swinging with paragraphs. You will over-explain. You will defend. You will perform your innocence like a courtroom drama for people who already chose a side before you even opened your mouth. And that is exhausting. That kind of living will drain your anointing. It will make you anxious in your own skin. It will make you feel like your life belongs to public opinion. That is no life. That is emotional captivity. You were not put here to become a full-time spokesperson for your own humanity. You were not put here to manage everybody's projections. You were not put here to make liars comfortable with the truth. You were put here to live. You were put here to grow. You were put here to become so rooted in who you are that noise starts sounding like exactly what it is. Noise. Not prophecy, not truth, not identity, just noise. Some of you know what it feels like to be talked about by people you never harmed. That kind of pain hits different, because it is not just the words, it is the shock. It is the realization that some people can sit in your presence, smile in your face, then go turn your name into entertainment the second you leave the room. It is the ache of finding out that your silence was called sneaky. Your privacy was called suspicious. Your confidence was called arrogance. Your boundaries were called attitude. Your glow was called fake. Your healing was called selfish. Your absence was called proof of something ugly. And there is a moment in every awakening where you realize people will rename your growth so they do not have to confront their stagnation. That is what happens. When you start changing, people who benefited from the old, you start creating stories to make the new you look wrong. Because the new you does not bend so easily. The new you does not answer every text on command. The new you does not sit at tables where you are the joke. The new you does not explain every move for public consumption. The new you started protecting your energy. And some people take your protection personally. Some people call it rude when they can no longer reach you the same way. Some people call it fake when they can no longer manipulate you. Some people call it a rumor when really it is just their reaction to losing access. That is why you cannot let every whisper pull you off your square. You have to understand the difference between being discussed and being defined. People can discuss you all day. That does not define you. They can misread you. That does not define you. They can lie on you. That does not define you. They can sit around in circles and analyze your life with missing pieces. That still does not define you. The danger comes when you start giving their version more weight than your own truth. The danger comes when gossip gets inside your bloodstream. Now you are restless. Now you are rehearsing speeches in your head. Now you are tempted to break your peace to prove a point. Now you are checking who watched what, liked what, said what, Hinted what? Now your spirit is tied to confusion that never belonged to you. That is how rumors steal more than reputation. They steal presence. They steal sleep. They steal focus. They steal the clean joy of being who you are without performing. And that is why this lesson matters. Any rumors about you, do not clear them up. Tell them go hear them again. Not because you are careless. Not because truth does not matter. Not because accountability is beneath you, but because you finally understand the difference between correction and captivity. If something truly needs to be addressed with someone who matters, you address it directly and cleanly. That is maturity. That is wisdom. But chasing every corner conversation, defending yourself to spectators, trying to control every narrative, trying to silence every liar, trying to make every bystander fair, that is captivity. That is a trap with no finish line. Because once people know they can pull a reaction out of you with a rumor, they will keep doing it. Some folks do not want a better relationship with you. They want better access to your emotions. They want to know they can still push your buttons. They want to see if your growth is real. They want to test whether your boundaries are solid or just a speech. So they throw something in the air. They sit back, and they wait. Will you spiral? Will you call? Will you post? Will you explain? Will you start naming names? Will you break your own discipline trying to correct people who were never confused in the first place? That is the part many people miss. A lot of folks are not misinformed. They are malicious. They heard the truth already. They just liked the lie better. They preferred the version that made them feel superior. They preferred the version that made your light look suspicious. They preferred the version that let them avoid their own reflection. So your explanation would not save you there. Your explanation would simply become more material. Now they are not just gossiping about your life. They are gossiping about your response. They are studying your emotions like free entertainment. You have to stop volunteering for stages you never asked to stand on. Your piece is not public property. Your name is not a community project. Your spirit is not here to be stretched across everybody's opinion. There is a type of power that enters your life when you stop interrupting your own healing to answer foolishness. That power is quiet. It does not need a microphone. It does not need a dramatic exit. It does not need a cryptic post. It does not need to gather witnesses. It just stands there, unmoved, clear, unavailable for the circus. And let me say this for the people who were raised to over-explain, for the people who were taught that being misunderstood is a crisis, for the people who learned early that love had to be negotiated through performance, for the people who became experts at managing everybody else's comfort. This lesson may feel unnatural at first, because silence used to feel dangerous. You learned to explain before anyone could accuse. You learned to soften before anyone could reject. You learned to over-deliver before anyone could doubt you. You learned to rush in with proof because you were scared that a lie might erase you. But hear this deeply. You do not disappear because somebody lied. You do not lose your value because somebody twisted your name. You do not become less real because somebody else is loud. Your truth does not weaken because gossip has better marketing. What is real stays real. What is clean stays clean. What is yours stays yours. And over time, consistency will preach louder than your panic ever could. That matters. Because a lot of people ruin their own credibility by responding to every small attack with big emotion. Now the focus is no longer the lie. The focus is your reaction. Now people say you seem bothered, you seem messy, you seem unstable, you seem guilty. That is why discipline is protection. Not every battle is won by speaking. Some battles are won by refusing to step into mud with people who live there. Some battles are won by staying so aligned that confusion cannot hook itself into you. Some battles are won by living so consistently that the rumor eventually looks ridiculous all by itself. And yes, that takes strength, real strength, not fake tough, not cold for show, not detached because you are numb. I am talking about the kind of strength that feels the sting and still chooses not to abandon itself. Because let us be honest, it hurts to be lied on. It hurts to be painted unfairly. It hurts when people who do not carry your heart speak on your intentions. It hurts when your silence gets weaponized. It hurts when people decide your story for you. Pain is real. But pain does not have to become performance. You are allowed to feel it without turning it into a campaign. You are allowed to grieve it without making it your identity. You are allowed to let it pass through without letting it take over. That is growth. Growth is not becoming unbothered by everything. Growth is knowing what deserves your bother. And most rumors do not. Most rumors are bait. Most rumors are insecurity wearing a loud outfit. Most rumors are people feeling too small in their own lives, so they create drama around yours. Most rumors are born in rooms where truth was never invited. Why would you chase your dignity into a room like that? Why would you hand your self-respect to people who are committed to consuming you wrong? You cannot heal in a place that profits from your distress. You cannot find peace in a place addicted to misreading you. You cannot keep your center if you are forever scanning the crowd for approval. There comes a day when you have to decide, do I want to be understood by everybody, or do I want to be free? Because most of the time, you do not get both, especially when your growth exposes people, especially when your presence unsettles shallow environments, especially when your boundaries make undisciplined people feel judged, especially when your silence forces others to listen to themselves. Some people are irritated by your peace because chaos can no longer recruit you. Some people are irritated by your distance because they lost access to the version of you that tolerated nonsense. Some people are irritated by your confidence because they can no longer define you before you define yourself. And that irritation becomes conversation. That conversation becomes exaggeration. That exaggeration becomes rumor. That rumor tries to become reality. But it only becomes reality in your life if you bow to it. And you do not have to bow. You do not have to chase every lie with a flashlight. You do not have to become your own public relations department. You do not have to shrink into likability to avoid being discussed. Some of you are finally learning that being talked about is not always a sign that you did something wrong. Sometimes it is a sign that you stopped playing small. Sometimes it is a sign that your no landed where somebody wanted access. Sometimes it is a sign that your glow disturbed someone who liked you dim. Sometimes it is a sign that your absence got louder than your presence ever did. And people do not always know how to handle the version of you that no longer begs to be included. So they talk. Let them. That sentence alone will set some of you free. Let them. Let them think what they want. Let them repeat what they heard. Let them collect assumptions like trophies. Let them watch from a distance and build fiction. Let them sit in their own projections. Let them choke on their own need to make you look worse so they can feel better. Let them. Because when you start trying to stop everybody from talking, you become a prisoner to mouths you cannot control. And you cannot build a free life while living hostage to public opinion. There is a cost to always defending yourself. It makes you hyper-aware. It makes you brittle. It makes you perform goodness instead of embodying it. It makes you fear mystery. It makes you overexpose yourself so nobody can accuse you of hiding. It makes you drain your sacred spaces, trying to look transparent enough for people who still plan to misread you. You deserve better than that. You deserve to have a life that is yours. A life that is not constantly interrupted by the latest rumor cycle. A life where you trust your own walk more than the commentary around it. A life where you no longer confuse accessibility with authenticity. Because listen carefully. You can be authentic without being available for interrogation. You can be honest without giving every detail. You can be kind without over-explaining. You can be mature without defending yourself to fools. You can be innocent and still be silent. That last one matters. Because many good-hearted people think silence makes them look guilty. So they rush to speak. They rush to show receipts. They rush to call everybody involved. They rush to defend because they think a quiet person will lose. Not always. Sometimes the quiet person wins because they kept their dignity while others exposed their character. Sometimes silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is discernment. Sometimes silence is the refusal to put your spirit on sale. Sometimes silence is a boundary. Sometimes silence is a message. I know exactly who I am, and I am not stepping down into confusion to convince strangers of it. That is not arrogance. That is grounding. That is emotional maturity. That is the kind of self-respect people cannot manipulate. And let us talk about the deeper reason rumors hit so hard. It is not just the words, it is the fear underneath. The fear that people will believe them. The fear that your image will be damaged. The fear that opportunities will dry up. The fear that relationships will shift. The fear that being misunderstood will isolate you. That fear is real, but fear will make you betray yourself fast if you do not watch it. Fear will have you abandoning your peace to impress temporary people. Fear will have you bending over backward for spectators. Fear will have you talking too much in places where less would have protected you. And the truth is, everybody who hears something about you is not your assignment. Everybody who listens to gossip is not your audience. Everybody who chooses a rumor over relationship was never secure enough to hold you properly anyway. That truth may sting, but it also liberates. Because now you can stop trying to save connections that were built on weak foundations. If one whisper can dismantle how they see you, then they were not seeing you through truth to begin with. If one rumor can erase years of your character in their mind, then they were waiting for a reason. If one lie can turn them cold without a conversation, then that relationship was never as rooted as you hoped. And yes, that can hurt. But it can also reveal. Rumors do not just expose fake stories. They expose fragile loyalty. They expose shallow perception. They expose who was holding your name with care and who was holding it like gossip waiting for ignition. That is information. Painful information, but useful information. Some losses are revelations in disguise. Some distance is protection in plain clothes. Some endings happen because a lie simply sped up what was already unstable. So stop seeing every rumor as a disaster. Sometimes it is a filter. Sometimes it clears the room for you. Sometimes it shows you exactly who had your back and who only had your image. Sometimes it reveals who needs drama to feel close to people. Sometimes it pushes you toward a life so grounded that public opinion can no longer whip you around. That is the level. That is the standard. Not a life where nobody speaks on you. That is impossible. But a life where what they say cannot govern how you move. A life where your inner world is not available for sabotage. A life where your peace is more expensive than their opinion. A life where you have decided that misunderstanding is uncomfortable, but self-betrayal is worse. That is the kind of power people feel even when you say nothing. And let us go even deeper. Sometimes the obsession with clearing rumors comes from an old wound, an old need, a younger version of you that believed being misjudged meant being unsafe, a younger version of you that learned image was survival, a younger version of you that could not relax until everybody seemed pleased. So now, when gossip rises, that old panic comes with it. That old urgency wakes up. That old voice says, fix it now. Say something now. Make them understand now. Make them like you again now. That voice is tired. That voice has been overworking for years. That voice got you through environments where misunderstanding carried consequences. So honor that. Do not shame yourself for feeling activated. But do not let that old survival pattern run your present life. You are not required to perform safety through explanation anymore. You are allowed to be rooted. You are allowed to disappoint false narratives by refusing to feed them. You are allowed to outgrow the habit of defending your existence. That is healing. Healing is when your first instinct is no longer panic. Healing is when your nervous system stops treating every rumor like the end of the world. Healing is when you realize some things can fall apart around your name and you still remain whole. Healing is when you stop measuring your worth by how accurately everybody else describes you. Healing is when you stop volunteering your peace to every misunderstanding. That does not mean you become careless. It means you become selective. You stop scattering your voice in places that dishonor it. You stop handing explanations to people who collect them like ammunition. You stop entering circles where your humanity is already on trial. That is not giving up. That is choosing yourself. And some of you need to hear this clearly. Choosing yourself will offend people who preferred your constant availability. Choosing yourself will irritate people who used to get emotional access whenever they wanted it. Choosing yourself will trigger people who expected a full response every time they poked at your life. But that offense is not your emergency. Their irritation is not your assignment. Their inability to control the story is not your burden. Let them go, hear it again. Let them repeat it until the words get stale in their own mouth. Let them sit there waiting for your collapse. Let them watch you stay steady instead. Because nothing confuses manipulative energy like non-participation. Nothing frustrates gossip like a person who refuses to break character. Nothing weakens foolishness like consistency. When they say you are this, and you keep moving with integrity. When they say you are that, and you keep showing up clean. When they expect you to explode and you remain composed. When they expect a public scene and you protect your peace. That is a sermon all by itself. That says more than 1,000 status updates ever could. And let me help you release one more thing. You do not need everyone to know the real you. That idea right there will mature your spirit. You do not need everyone to know the real you. Some people do not have the depth to hold your full story. Some people only know how to handle labels. Some people only understand you through the lens of their wounds. Some people reduce everybody because complexity requires empathy, and empathy is work. So stop trying to force access where there is no capacity. Stop trying to explain your heart to people committed to simple narratives. Stop trying to prove your purity to people who benefit from your stain. The right people will feel your consistency. The right people will notice the disconnect between who you are and what was said. The right people will come to you or watch your life long enough to see what is real. And the wrong people, let them go. Truly, let them go. Not in bitterness, not in revenge, not with a secret desire to be chased back. Let them go in peace. Let them walk with whatever version they chose, because you cannot drag people into truth they are determined to avoid. And there is no reward at the end of exhausting yourself for people who enjoy confusion. Some of you have delayed your own elevation because you keep circling back to defend yourself to people from old seasons, old mindsets, old rooms, old versions of yourself. You are trying to carry your current peace into places built on your past pain. That will not work. Not everybody from your old life deserves a front row seat to your new alignment. Not everybody who heard the rumor deserves your side of the story. Sometimes your elevation requires leaving certain people with the version they chose because your future has no room for constant explanation. Your future needs energy. Your purpose needs focus. Your healing needs quiet. Your becoming needs room. And rumors are thieves, not because they are powerful, but because they are distracting. They lure you away from your work. They lure you away from your joy. They lure you away from what actually matters. Now you are spending your best hours obsessing over something petty while your calling sits untouched. No, not anymore. This season of your life requires a different response, a holier response, a calmer response, a more self-respecting response. Not because you are above being hurt, but because you are no longer willing to be governed by nonsense. There is something beautiful that happens when you stop defending yourself to everybody. You start hearing yourself again. You start trusting your own reality again. You start noticing how much peace returns when you are not constantly scanning for distortion. You start reclaiming the energy that used to leak into panic. You start becoming more expensive energetically, harder to bait, harder to reach with foolishness, harder to shake. That is not hard-heartedness. That is stewardship. That is maturity. That is somebody learning that peace is not just a feeling. It is a boundary. And boundaries are not always loud. Sometimes boundaries look like no response. Sometimes boundaries look like no explanation. Sometimes boundaries look like a changed number, a closed door, a quiet exit, a private life. a heart that no longer performs for an audience. That is still a boundary. Some of the strongest people in the world are not the ones who win every argument. They are the ones who know which arguments are beneath their spirit. They are the ones who no longer confuse accessibility with love. They are the ones who understand that every invitation to explain is not an invitation from truth. Some invitations come from chaos. Some invitations come from ego. Some invitations come from people hoping you will step out of alignment long enough to make their story seem true. Do not help them. Do not partner with your own sabotage. Do not give chaos your vocabulary. Stay grounded. Stay discerning. Stay anchored in what is real. And hear me when I say this. Silence is not always passive. Sometimes silence is active trust. Sometimes silence is the declaration that your character can carry what your mouth does not need to. Sometimes silence is the refusal to turn your sacred life into public consumption. Sometimes silence is a statement so strong it rattles every person who expected access to your emotions. You do not owe everybody a reaction. You do not owe everybody your softness. You do not owe everybody your explanation, especially not after they mishandled your name. There has to be a point where you decide your life is too precious to keep handing to cheap conversation. There has to be a point where you say enough. Enough performing. Enough pleading. Enough proving. Enough trying to micromanage every opinion. Enough carrying the emotional debt of people who never paid respect. Enough interrupting my peace because somebody somewhere said something. Enough. That enough is sacred. That enough is a turning point. That enough is where your peace stops being negotiable. And once you get there, you start to see rumors differently. You stop seeing them as emergencies. You start seeing them as echoes. Echoes of insecurity. Echoes of jealousy. Echoes of disappointment from people who lost access. Echoes of projection from people unwilling to confront themselves. Echoes from rooms you have already outgrown. And echoes cannot build a life. Only truth can. Only consistency can. Only alignment can. Only character can. So keep your life aligned. Keep your steps clean. Keep your circle wise. Keep your spirit guarded. Let your actions speak where your mouth no longer needs to. Let time expose what you do not have to. Let character outlive conversation. Let peace become your loudest answer. Because the truth is, people who know your heart will know. People who are meant for you will feel the difference. People with discernment will not be easily moved by noise. And people who choose gossip over truth are self-selecting their distance from your life. Let them. This path you are on now is not about being everybody's favorite. It is about becoming whole. Whole people do not chase every opinion. Whole people do not bleed for every rumor. Whole people do not stand in every courtroom built by insecure minds. Whole people know when to speak. Whole people know when to leave. Whole people know that peace is sometimes protected by saying less. You are becoming that kind of person, a person who no longer trembles every time somebody misunderstands them, a person who no longer abandons themselves to look good in somebody else's story, a person who no longer explains their boundaries to people offended by them, a person who knows their life is not a debate. A person who knows that some lies collapse simply because truth kept living. That is your work. Keep living. Keep rising. Keep building. Keep healing. Keep becoming. Let the rumor run out of breath while you keep moving. Let the lie grow old while your life grows fuller. Let the watchers watch. Let the talkers talk. Let the doubters doubt. And you. Keep your hands on your purpose. Keep your heart near what is real. Keep your eyes on what actually matters, because one day, what they said will be a stale memory, but the way you protected your peace will have built an entire new life, and that grounded, clear, self-respecting life, is worth so much more than winning a temporary argument with temporary people. So no, any rumors about you, do not clear them up. Tell them go hear them again. Then go live so deeply in your truth that their noise never gets the final word.